question I want to throw to you, Craig, on you talk about spatial skills as
Mm,
playing a really important role. And
mm.
again, your use of that term is new to me in this context. So I'd like you to just expand on that a bit. It's
Um, so in terms of where you're situated in both your mediation stance, where you're bodily situated, I use the concept of and so people have challenged me on this because it's not common culturally, but on my left hand, so it's a kind of Greek Shakespearean concept around time. Time moves from stage left to stage right. All those out there who want to challenge me on that, great, but it's a performance. So when I'm talking about the problem, I might be standing this because my mediations are public, not two people kind of mediations. I'm using my left hand and waving it and pointing to the left and saying, and I'm talking about the problem. If when I'm talking about the event of the mediation, the process of the mediation, I'm standing in the middle of the room and using both hands to talk about that scenario, what we're doing today, how we're going to do it, what the process is, etc. And then as part of the movement from problem to solution, I can talk at the very beginning of the mediation over on the right-hand side of the room, my right, that we're talking about the future, and I'm using my right hand to indicate that I'm moving. So there's all kinds of movement, and if you do that well, you can position yourself in the room when each of those situations are occurring. So even when the parties are talking about a thing, you can be on the right if it's about the solution, etc. And the bodily movement, one thing I think so one of my truisms is that Indigenous folk watch bodies really carefully and they will notice stuff. So if you're consistent in your positioning, then that will indicate what it is we're doing. And so if you're yeah, and I think that's important in
yeah,
terms of that. I guess the other spatial concept I use is how is the dispute resolution space different from the conflict space? And making that difference apparent, like drawing attention to it. And in the paper, I use the theatrical concepts of drawing attention to that. And that enables people to have the conversation in a way that's focused on the problem solving and not on reenacting the dispute or keep constantly referring back to that. Very quickly, traditionally, you might choose, say, I had the fortune to be involved in a traditional practice led by the late Dini Gondara in at Elcho Island, Yolnu process. So instead of the concept that I'm trying to do, that's bring the West to the Indigenous and be respectful of Indigenous, he was trying to bring the Indigenous to the West and be respectful of the West. So performatively, the ground at Elcho Island's all red, and the in this scenario, there would be white sand under a large sandpaper fig. The sandpaper fig was called the Yati tree, and it was in effect bringing the law up from the ground through the tree, and you would sit to resolve a dispute. You sit on the sand under the tree, and there are rules that apply that you can't break. That's the right place to have the conversation, and you're clearly not in the dispute space, you're in the resolution space. Uh, and that metaphor of vision and performance, I think, I want to bring that to the table as a kind of idea that borrows from both theatre, Western theatre, and from Indigenous meaning.
yes. I thought, yes, I think the latter point you made rather well articulated what I took out of the term when I read your paper, which is it's a holistic sort of use of space
Hmm.
when you're in the conflict resolution area.